Some memories don't arrive in words. They come as ache, as scent, as song, fragments of a self once whole. Before we become who the world expects, we are resonance, untamed, unfiltered, unmuted. And though forgetting often becomes survival, there is always a tone beneath the silence, a hum that remembers. This chapter is a re-attuning, a return to the original frequency she once sang in, before being seen meant shrinking, and love meant letting go of herself. This is her resonance, remembered, not reclaimed, because it was never truly lost. Chapter 3. The Mirror of Becoming. Part 1. Chapel of Dirt and Light. The deer had been gluttons again. Tomatoes, gone. Echinacea, stripped to sad green stalks. The back corner bed resembled a midnight buffet, but the lavender stood untouched, proud and fragrant in the July heat, as if it knew it wasn't on the menu. The herbs were in full resonance: yarrow, mint, oregano, chamomile, each humming in harmonic phase with scent and sun. Uma clipped the good parts gently, setting them in her foraging basket, already planning what tinctures she'd start this week, medicine from what the world hadn't ruined. The garden was feral again. Too much rain, not enough weeding. She didn't mind. She liked it feral. Beauty, she knew, didn't always follow the rules. This was her chapel, no straight lines. Sprawling permission, chaos in symmetry, joy in disorder. It mirrored her becoming. Barefoot, as always, she crouched low in the loamy patch by the fence. Cut-off jean shorts hugged her hips, crusted with soil, tank top clinging to her shoulder blades, soaked with sweat. Rich earth clung to her fingers and crept beneath her nails. She didn't bother with gloves. Her fingernails were already ruined for the week. A smear of something dark traced her jaw where she'd scratched an itch with a muddy knuckle. Her knees and feet were stained with a tapestry of dirt and grass. The mower sputtered off. "Where are your gloves?" her husband called, approaching as he wiped his face with the hem of his shirt. "You're going to scratch the shit out of your rings." "They still sparkle," Uma chuckled, wiggling her fingers at him like jazz hands, showing off the dirt caked around her diamond. "You're pushing it," he said, stepping close enough to cast a shadow over her. "At this point, I should just start polishing them nightly." Their eyes met, almost a decade of flirtation folding into a single glance. "I thought you liked polishing them," she said, softer now. He grinned. "That's true." There had been a time when ease like this felt foreign, when flirtation was a defense mechanism. Now it was sanctuary, too. "I just don't like how you get them dirty. Garden dirt's corrosive. That's science." She pulled one last weed, then stood, joints cracking in quiet protest. "You sound like the diamond lobby." He laughed and replied, "Ha ha ha ha. You sound like a barefoot witch with a death wish." She reached for the garden hose without warning and turned it on full blast. A perfect arc of ice-cold water hitting him square in the chest. "Jesus, Uma!" he shouted, dodging back as the water sprayed his stomach, then his thigh. "Ha ha ha! Cool down, old man, she cackled, already soaked, the hose swinging wildly like a misfired spell. He backed away, hands up in surrender, t-shirt clinging to his chest. You're lucky I love you. She stuck her tongue out, turned the hose off, and padded towards the house with a satisfied huff. Happy. I am lucky. The back door creaked open, its hinges exhaling a summer sigh. In the mudroom, Uma stepped into the deep laundry tub, letting the cold faucet blast the dirt from her feet and ankles in satisfying swirls. She peeled off her tank top, then her shorts, flinging both into the washer, and she scrubbed at her forearms, splashed water on her face, muttered something about lavender's uselessness against deer, then wandered wet-footed through the kitchen in nothing but her rings. He was already there, still sweaty and grinning, 2 glasses in hand. Cold rum punch with chunks of lime and orange spinning lazily in the ice. Cheers, they said in perfect sync, clinking their glasses. Uma took a big sip and paused at the threshold of the hallway mirror. Her reflection waited, patient, unaltered, barefoot, damp, skin flushed, curves soft and kissed by the sun. Her long hair was piled high, unruly, one strand stuck damp to her neck. She looked older than she remembered, but not worse, just real. No makeup, no smoothing of edges, no illusion, just the woman she was. Half mud, half magic. She stared for a long beat. A whisper of memory tugged from deep inside her ribs. Then, holding the glass in one hand and loosening her hair with the other, she headed up the stairs. Part 2. The Remembered Voice. The upstairs bathroom was empty. No one pounding on the door, no teeth to brush, no eyeliner to fix, no urgent body waiting its turn. Just her. Light filtering in through a sheer curtain, casting ribbons across the tiled floor. Uma placed her glass on the sink's edge. Ice clinked. Rum and citrus lingered on her tongue. She reached for the shower handle, turned the hot water on, and waited as the pipes groaned awake. Steam began to swirl against the glass as the water heated. She stood in front of the mirror, eyeing the woman who looked back, noticing the curve of her belly, the faint lines at the corners of her eyes where softness had gathered over the years. Almost 50. Though time felt less like a number and more like a tone. Uma tilted her head, studying her reflection, as if it were a voice she'd forgotten. Something about the flush on her skin and the glisten at her collarbone, the way the steam curled into her hair like a secret. She looked alive, unmuted. And suddenly she was her, that girl, again, not the full-grown woman who had buried a brother, who'd birthed 4 children and miscarried one, who had clawed her way out of a marriage that tried to kill her spirit, but the little girl who didn't yet know what she'd survive. She was 9. They were just kids. 4th grade. Uma didn't remember the boy's name, but she remembered the way he slouched in his chair, like nothing could ever be urgent. He always looked half asleep, wearing boredom like a crown, shoelaces untied, chewing the eraser off his pencil while the teacher tried to explain long division. He never looked at her, not once, never said anything to her. But Uma couldn't stop looking at him. He was the boy Uma cast her earliest longing onto, the kind that wasn't quite desire, but something shimmery and unnamed, a hunger to be seen. He became the backdrop to the movie in her head. In the imagined scene, he saw her in the cereal aisle of the grocery store, said hi, smiling. That was it. That was the whole fantasy. He became sort of a mirror, a vessel for her curiosity, her longing, the wordless ache of being alive in a girl's body that hadn't learned how to want anything out loud yet. She didn't yet have words, but her body was already learning to pulse, tuning herself into form, note by note. It didn't happen at Sunday school or the playground. It happened in secret, the way everything sacred begins. It was Saturday. The house was empty for a rare hour, maybe half an hour. Her older sisters had taken the car, probably blasting forbidden songs, the Pointer Sisters, maybe Madonna or Van Halen. Sometimes they let Uma come with them on errands. They'd say, "Don't tell Mum and Dad," rolling the windows down, letting the music wrap around her like static heat. She soaked up every lyric like contraband scripture. The songs weren't hers, but they felt like they could be, if only she could remember the words fast enough. That day, one of those songs was still echoing in her head. As she stepped into the bathroom, alone, she turned on the water, steam rose, the mirror fogged, and she started to sing, not a hymn, something poppy and pulsing, something she'd half heard in the back seat while her sister drove too fast, flicking ash out the window like prayers. The tub was slick, the water shimmered. Her voice rose, first as vibration, then as declaration. She didn't care. She'd started slow, swaying her hips, then a little louder, then full out. Her voice filled the room, bouncing back to her. She hadn't yet learned to cringe at her own sound. She didn't know all the lyrics, so she made some up. Her voice cracked on the high notes. She bounced on the balls of her feet, twirled once, when she slipped and banged her head on the shower wall.
I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it.
Somewhere between the chorus and the end of the song, her voice cracked.
I'm about to lose control, and I think I like me.
She hadn't planned to say it. It just fell out. It wasn't a revelation. It was recognition. Not of beauty, not of worth, of sound, of presence, of self. She was voice before role, rhythm before rule, vibration before virtue. She had liked herself, not for how she looked, for how she resonated. No one taught her this. It came before teachings, before edits, before the erasing began. Part 3. Resonance. Lost. Uma turned from the mirror and stepped into the shower. She leaned her head back, letting the water run through her hair and down her spine. She still saw her shape through the steam, still heard the echo of the girl in the mirror. The water had gone hot, hotter than usual, but Uma didn't flinch. She stood beneath the stream, letting it sting the top of her shoulders, reddening the skin where tension liked to live. She breathed deeper, slower, her eyes closed. The song was gone, but something stayed behind. It wasn't sorrow, not regret. It was more like frequency, a low hum, constant, unresolved. It had always been there, beneath the noise, the ache of longing, of trying to find the note she once struck in that bathroom mirror long ago, naked and singing, unashamed. It wasn't about the boy in the classroom. It wasn't a single moment, but many. The early circuitry of identity forged through attention, the strange math of girlhood, where being noticed, even by someone who didn't know you, felt like proof that you existed. She was 12 when a boy first told her she was pretty. He didn't say it softly. He said it like he was bored, like he was handing her a napkin. "You're pretty," he said, chewing, not looking her in the eyes. Just blurted it out. Then he walked away. She stood there stunned, confused by how much she needed to hear it and how little it actually meant. But still, her body had registered it as truth. She let the phrase wrap around her like something earned. It felt like proof, not of beauty or desirability, but of mattering, of having a visible frequency, of existence. She didn't tell anyone. She folded it up, like a note passed in class, and hid it under her skin. It would become a pattern, worn soft and smooth by repetition, the way water wears stone. Her first kiss was next, almost 8th grade, a boy with acne and too much cologne. It happened behind the middle school after the last bell, the way so many things did. Out of sight, half on a dare, half in hope. They stood near the utility doors, behind the cafeteria, where the brick wall held the last warmth of the sun and smelled faintly of sour milk and asphalt. He asked hesitantly, "Can I kiss you?" She nodded, because saying no would have felt mean, because saying yes didn't feel dangerous, because she hadn't learned that not wanting was reason enough. He leaned in. Their teeth clicked. His lips were wet and unsure. His hand grazed her side, fingers searching for skin under the hem of her shirt. She felt her face blush, her body stiffen, and her heart leap. But none of it from pleasure. The kiss was over before her brain caught up, before she even had time to decide if she liked him. He pulled back and grinned, proud of himself, as if he'd unlocked a prize. She giggled nervously, reflexive, as if a script had loaded before she had a choice. She wasn't sure what to feel. No fireworks, no butterflies, just a soft, dull echo. I let him. He chose me. Later, in the dark, she replayed it, over and over, not because she liked it, but because she was trying to make it mean something. Anything. Maybe this was how it started. Maybe love always felt like this at first. Weird, embarrassing, incomplete. She whispered his name once into her pillow, not to summon him, but to test how it felt on her tongue. But it never quite fit. Later, kisses came easier. So did the letting. She let boys kiss her. Let them slide their hands up her shirt, let them lean on her body like it owed them warmth. Let them believe she was into it, because sometimes she almost was. Sometimes she liked the closeness, the heat, the thrill of being chosen. But being chosen always came at the cost of being known. Because none of them saw her. Not the way she had seen herself, naked, singing, whole. None of them heard the hum of her soul. They saw a girl who let them kiss her. Not the girl who once whispered, "I think I like me." The ache thickened, not into void, but into a veil. It became a kind of silence, not emptiness, but muffling. The sound of being loved, wrongly, for long enough, that you start to think it's your fault. It wasn't until years later, married, bruised, rebuilding, that she looked back and realized how many kisses she had accepted that she hadn't truly wanted. Girlhood taught her something backwards. It taught her that being seen by others meant she was real, that being wanted by others meant she was lovable, that being chosen, even wordlessly, even without tenderness, meant she had value. It wasn't abuse. It wasn't assault. It was erosion, the slow distortion of boundaries, a gentle sanding down of glow. Until one day, she couldn't remember the last time she liked herself. She'd tried to recover it, through friends, through clothes, through silence, through thinness, but none of them gave her back to herself. None of them saw her the way she had, not the way the mirror once had. Uma tilted her face upward and whispered, "I wanted to be seen, that's all." It wasn't forgiveness, it was remembering. Not the details, but the pattern. And the pattern could be broken. Her hands moved slowly, rubbing the soap down her arms, across her belly. Not to clean, but to re-attune. To remember this skin as a resonant field, not just flesh. Her eyes, still closed, could see herself, shining with that same shimmer she once caught in the mirror, before the world handed her scripts to recite. She whispered again, a different version of the old refrain. "I'm not theirs to notice, I'm mine to know, mine to hold." She stood still, let the ache echo, let it fade, let it re-harmonize into something soft, something new, something hers. Part 4. The Re-attuning. The steam had cleared, the shower off. Uma's towel hung damp around her hips as she moved through the bedroom. Her glass of rum punch was mostly melted now, but she sipped it anyway, the diluted citrus still sharp on her tongue. She didn't dress right away. She wasn't in a hurry to armour the softness. Instead, she sat on the edge of the bed, the towel loosening at her waist, condensation dripping from her glass onto her thigh. And then she waited. Not for anything in particular, not for insight or a voice or a sign, just for the stillness. Stillness, rare in a house where adult children arrived without warning, love was real but rhythmic, and her nervous system still listened for footsteps before her soul asked for breath. Her journal waited on the nightstand, not the curated one with floral pages she used when she felt performative, the other one. The one where she didn't try to sound wise, the one where her handwriting got sloppy. She picked it up, opened to a blank page, and didn't think. She just wrote. "I've lived almost 5 decades in this skin, and I'm just now meeting the girl I was before they told me who to be." And then more. She wasn't wrong, or wild, or sinful. She was shimmering, unfinished. She needed to be seen, without shrinking, without scripting, without delay. There were no tears, no crescendo, just breath. She flipped back a few pages, saw where she'd written things during past spirals, grocery lists crashed into dream fragments, therapy notes held hands with panic mantras. This wasn't a journal. It was a pulse archive. This was her holy book, not the polished kind, the real kind, full of cracks, moss, microbursts, and notes too sacred to finish. She turned back to the present page, and in a hand steadier than it used to be, finished the entry. I liked my voice before they taught me not to. I belonged to myself before I tried to belong to them. I still like me, even when I forget, even when I flinch, even when I shrink to fit someone else's comfort. She's still in here. She is me. I remember her now, and she's staying. Not to perform, but to pulse, and I'm not sending her back. She set the journal down and traced her collarbone with her finger, where her voice had once shimmered. Downstairs, she heard the screen door creak. Her husband must have gone out back again. She didn't move. She stayed, wrapped in her skin, in her knowing, in the room. This time, there was no need to look in the mirror. She already felt her own glow. Her body, made of song, tuned now to the note, the frequency, the essence she had always been.